joining us right now from what looks like a nice scene in, I guess, the Florida range. So, John, great to see you and the short sleeves going. I'm a fan during the winter time here, and a lot of action suddenly. So, we haven't spoken to you in a while. So, let's go over what's very pressing at the moment. Marcus Stroman signing with the New York Yankees. What do you think about this deal and the fact that they probably are not going to add a top end starter like a Blake Snell?
I'm fine with the deal. I mean, I like Marcus Stroman, really good pitcher, under 4 ERA, terrific competitor, a defense, a feisty guy. It'd certainly be good for us in the quotes in the clubhouse, so I like that. It's a plus. But if it means that they're not signing anybody else, I think that's an issue. I mean, their rotation does not look very sound right now. It certainly got talent, but I mean, Rodon, I mean, not only was he hurt last year, he was frankly terrible. Cortez was mostly hurt last year. Stroman, who's not really been injured much during the career, he's been very good about avoiding that, and certainly not really any serious arm injury. He did miss most of the second half last year, majority of it. I mean, he was certainly better than the other two. Rodon was not good even when he pitched. So, and then certainly have Clark Schmidt, who's a back end guy, but added Luke Weaver. But to me, it looks like Garrett Cole, and then you're crossing your fingers after that. So. I'm a fan of the Stroman signing. I'm not a fan of the idea that they're not going to get somebody else.
John, how you doing? You looking nice and warm. Look like you probably shot a 95 today.
95. I have never shot a 95 legitimately. With cheating, I would shoot a 95 maybe. I have a golf stat for you. I've heard only 10% of people have legitimately broken 100 in their career. 10%. Yeah. Think about that. Now you guys you're an athlete, so I mean you can't even believe it, I'm sure, but I do. There's no way I could break 100 legitimately. I can break 100 cheating. Yeah, most people can do that.
Is Stroman a difference maker?
I mean, right now I think he's good. I mean, I think he's a really good pitcher. Cashman had said in 2019, that's a good word, and I'm sure that's why you picked that word, that he was not a difference maker, and that's why they didn't get him. And I don't know if you guys recall this, but when he was traded to the Mets instead of the Yankees, and this is kind of funny because he's a Long Island guy from way out on the island. Normally that's Mets territory. He was quite upset to be traded to the Mets instead of the Yankees. He wanted to be a Yankee, and I think that's really the genesis for the rips that he did on the Yankees on Twitter. He was upset that he didn't get to go to the Yankees, and he wanted to be a Yankee. He certainly helps. Difference maker, to me, difference maker is Dylan Cease. Difference maker is Corbin Burns. Difference maker is Blake Snell. He's a good pitcher. He certainly will make some difference. But to me, that rotation just isn't good enough. I mean, they've got Juan Soto for 1 year, right? And then he's a free agent. You want to make this year count. And I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that with the rotation that they do have.
All right. Let's reference this. I think we're going to pull it up here. If we have this tweet about, it's either a tweet or a comment about the Yankees lineup roster per dollars is the least valuable productive lineup in baseball, even lower than the A's. What is your first reaction when you hear that?
Wait, hold on. Let me clarify it a little.
Did I not say that right?
No, you didn't. I'm gonna help him out. So this is a super chat from one of our fans because there's 700-800 people watching live right now just on YouTube alone, John. So this is from Chris. The Yankees' payroll to valuation ratio is the worst in all of baseball. Worse than the A's. Yes, you read that right. The Yankees spend a smaller percentage of their total franchise value on players than the A's. This is according to Chris. So your thoughts on that? Do you think there's truth to that? And should the Yankees be spending more?
That's interesting. They are a team that, spent well over $200 million more than a decade ago, right? So now they're a little bit over $300 million. That probably has not kept pace with their revenues. I mean, I couldn't cite exactly what their revenues are, but I think they're the highest in baseball. And I think they're way up in the 800 to 900 million range. So I could see that as a possibility. I don't know if this guy has some secret sources or he's stolen some paperwork or what, but it's possible. I mean, certainly the A's, they may have no revenue. So, it's probably that part of it is understandable, right? If you have no revenue, you are spending a fair amount by spending almost nothing. But, the Yankee payroll is in the top three with the Mets and the Dodgers. And, at one point, 10 to 15 years ago, it was clearly number one, and their revenue was not nearly as high. So I could see that as a possible issue or thought that it should go higher. But my issue right now is they need to get a better rotation because right now it's just not it's not very sound. I mean, I can't say it's not talented because obviously Stroman is very talented. So is Rodon and so is Cortez. But it's pretty iffy.
So I get the frustration there from some Yanks fans, John, because they're reminiscing about the days that you're referring to when they're just the big bad Yanks. They are number one payroll year after year. That's not the case. There are other contenders in that field these days. So I'm looking one more time for you on the Stroman signing, and he did finish the year injured. Carlos Rodon was their big free agent starting pitching signing last offseason, hurt. Their big addition before that from the starting rotation was Frankie Montas. So do you think that the Yankees are more aggressive with starters that are coming off injuries and acquiring them? And is that burning them too much lately?
They certainly have a problem with injuries, whether it's acquiring guys with an injury question or guys getting hurt once they get to the Yankees. I mean, obviously they signed Garrett Cole to what was a record contract at the time, $324 million, and that's a grand slam. He's the best pitcher in baseball. But other than that, their record for signing pitchers over the last several years is not good. And the record for signing anybody or acquiring anybody over the last 3 years has been frankly terrible. I mean, I think it's great that they figure 82 and 80 is a disaster. So that tells you something about where they stand and where they want to stand. But their record on acquisitions in the last 3 years is not good for pitchers, for hitters, and the record for keeping guys healthy is abysmal. There were questions about Montas before they signed him. Stroman, I'm not that worried about. He has not had a long history of arm issue. I think he had a rib thing for the most part in the second half last year. So that one doesn't bother me from an injury standpoint. The only thing that bothers me is that was it either or? I mean, we're either going to get Snell or Stroman. I mean, Snell, NL Cy Young winner. Stroman, 7 ERA over the last 3 months this season. I mean, I know it wasn't a lot of innings, but I think Stroman overall is a good pitcher, but that's not an either or question for the team with the highest revenue in baseball. You get Stroman and then you move on and try to improve again.
How is the dynamic going to be, too? Because Blake Snell never put any tweets out about Brian Cashman comments. Stroman has taken his down. Is there going to be, I get it was 3-4 years ago, but is there going to be any clash there? Is this something that was already talked about? How is this going to play out here for this season? Because you already have a guy in Alex Verdugo who comes with a little bit of baggage on the roster.
Yeah, I assume they have to get past that. I mean, they signed him. They're giving him $37 million with a vesting option. They can't really think of that as anything important. If they did, they wouldn't have signed him. In some sense, I give Cashman credit for having a thick skin. Obviously, he has to. He's basically getting killed by the fans every day for the last year. And again, they went 82 and 80. It's not like they were really terrible or really disastrous. They have looked past stuff. Remember when before they acquired Josh Donaldson, he made a comment about Garrett Cole being the biggest sticky stuff guy. And, I think they just go by the talent generally, and they think they can survive with whatever character. I mean, obviously there's some limit on the character, but, they think they can get past an issue like that, whether it be a clash or something like that. Obviously, there are some big issues they want to avoid, and they've avoided those really big issues. And I heard you guys interviewing Ken earlier. They've avoided those, but it seems like they're willing to kind of butt heads a little bit with each other once in a while and, try to resolve things. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And I don't think Stroman is a bad guy. I think he's a guy who's very opinionated. Sometimes he goes a little bit overboard, but I don't think he's going to be a real negative in the clubhouse.
I think he sells the game and he sells his brand, and I think we need more of that, and he's not afraid to do it. So let's shift all the way out to the West Coast. Is Jordan Hicks overrated, making him overpaid, Or because when you look at a Ronaldo Lopez signing, you know, what he's done, he's kind of on this trajectory, but Jordan Hicks has always been a 105-mile-an-hour sinker, but the numbers aren't quite there in the aspect of a $11 million reliever, and now he's a starter.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that big arm, so the Giants are going to take a chance that they can turn him into a starter and get a bargain that way. I'm not so sure this is a great idea. I mean, obviously, he's had a lot of injury questions. He obviously has a big arm, but he has not really performed to the level of the arm, even beyond the injury questions. It's a great job by the agency to get that contract for him, and maybe the Giants see something. And again, the Braves, maybe they see something in Lopez. I kind of think that's a gamble as well. I mean, Lopez may be in a better trajectory, but he hasn't really lived up to his 100-plus mile-an-hour throwing either. I think they're somewhat similar, so I'm glad you put them together. I think they're kind of in the same ballpark in terms of incredible talent, big arm, really hasn't performed to the level of that arm or that talent.
There's another big arm at the back end of the bullpen who has performed, Josh Hader. Haven't heard much about him. I know obviously he's probably going to be seeking Edwin Diaz style contract because the numbers say he should. What's been the latest on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very quiet. It doesn't mean nothing's going on. I do think he has been the best reliever in the game. Obviously started with your Orioles, but made his name with the Brewers and was really good last year with the Padres. Maybe one of those two Oriole relievers was as good or better, but basically was one of the top 3 or 4 relievers in the game. Devin Williams also with Milwaukee, the guy who replaced them, very good. But, 1.2 ERA last year. He should get Edwin Diaz money. He's had a better career than Edwin Diaz. Diaz had that big year, big platform year with 18 strikeouts per 9 innings or so record, and that explains that to some degree. And I think he signed for $102 million, but with the deferrals, it was like $94 million. To me, Hader is worth that. So we'll see what happens in the end. But I mean, if Hicks gets $44 million, I mean, certainly Hader is worth more than double. I mean, maybe that's a funny way to calculate, but I still think that the Dodgers, the Rangers, the Cubs. I like the Phillies, although I think they're looking at right-handed. Maybe they'll go for Stevenson. I think they were in on Hicks. I'm not going to rule out the Yankees, as the viewer said. They have big revenue and they should be spending more. And right now their bullpen doesn't look spectacular either. It looks better than rotation, but couldn't hurt if they signed him. So there are a number of reasonable options, logical options for Hader, and to me, he deserves to be the highest paid reliever in the game.
Tell me if I'm wrong. It's Hader and Stevenson, but where does Hector Neris, a very consistent, older arm, where does he fit into this? It seems super quiet. I haven't heard. I even had to ask if he had signed yet or not.
Yeah, no, I think, his numbers have been good and he's been consistent. You're absolutely right, Eric. He's a really good pitcher. I think teams go by those secondary numbers like the velocity and the exit velocity against him and different numbers that we maybe don't see as much, and those weren't as good. So, yes, I think it has been very quiet with Neris. He has been a very good pitcher. To me, I'd be a guy who pays on performance, and his performance has been really good. I think some of these guys, Hicks included, are paid on potential. Rather have a guy paid on performance, and it would be cheaper anyway. I mean, obviously, Hicks does have that big arm, that big potential, but Neris, to me, could be a very good deal for somebody.
John, I'll finish with this. So who do you think needs to strike from a team perspective with still quite a few free agents left to be signed, including at the top of the market? I think we've talked quite a bit about San Francisco. They do pick up another piece. I think they should and still will do more. The Cubs just woke up the other day, right before Cubs Fest. That was good timing for them. But what do you think when you're looking out at the teams? Like, who do you think's going to spend, maybe a couple $100 million over the next couple of weeks? Because that is going to be spent somehow or another.
Right. Well, I think you named the two top teams, the Giants and the Cubs. Those are the teams that probably will spend. If you ask me who should spend, I kind of like the Red Sox who should spend, right? They finished last 3 out of 4 years. Their revenues are huge, maybe not quite the Yankees or the Dodgers, but they're pretty high up there. They're certainly in the top 5 in baseball. So I kind of think that the Red Sox have been in on everybody. I like some of their deals. I like Tyler O'Neill. I think Grissom's going to be really good. I think Giolito can bounce back. But to me, they're acting more like a mid-market team. But the teams that I think still have more in them and will be aggressive are the Cubs and the Giants. And I think both teams have been in on Bellinger and Chapman. And, we'll see on Snell. I would think the Giants would be on him. I don't think you can assume Hicks is going to be a great starter. And let's take Hicks, not Snell. That's kind of like the Yankees. Let's take Stroman, not Snell. I don't quite get that. So, and the Giants have been an aggressive team. I mean, they've done great from a business standpoint. They have tried to spend. They haven't always spent, but they've tried to spend, and I think they will continue to try to spend. But I think, Scott, you got the two teams right. I think the Giants and the Cubs are the teams left that will spend the most.
With 5 weeks left before spring training, what do you think my Orioles are going to do? You think they're going to spend money, spend some of the players, the prospects? What do you see them doing before the start of spring training?
Well, starting pitcher, I mean, they should be in the best position to get Cease. Now, I'm not sure Cease is going to be traded during the season. They may end up keeping him and seeing how he does. Obviously, he didn't have his best year last year. Maybe his value would actually go up if they traded him at the deadline. But Cease is certainly a guy the Orioles have been connected to. That would be the most exciting piece for them. I'm sure that the White Sox would like Westberg and others, but the Orioles have terrific prospect capital to spend. So if anybody should get Cease, it's them. If they're not able to do that, I think they've been connected to Paxton, maybe Ryu, something like that. I know last year they signed Gibson when we were all looking for them to do something bigger. They're not signing Snell and they're not signing Montgomery unless the price really caves, which it won't. But they definitely are going to add a starting pitcher, whether it be the top guy, Cease, or more of a mid-range guy at this point like Ryu or Paxton.
All right, this is the last one and we'll let you go. The Marlins. Do they trade Luis Ariz or Jesus Luzardo, which you just talked about the Orioles? I think that'll be a nice fit for them because they just need any kind of starting pitcher. But do either one of those guys get traded?
Wait, hold up. Are the Marlins rebuilding? I'm sorry. I have to jump in here.
The Marlins don't make money.
Are they rebuilding again? Did they even build up to anything? What are we doing?
I don't know if they're rebuilding, but I've heard everything is on the table. Does that mean that they're just switching people around and getting different players with the same payroll, or does that mean they're rebuilding? They haven't really clarified it, but we know from other teams that everything is on. By everything, I mean not Yuri Perez, they're not trading him. Sandy Alcantara, he's not going anywhere, but everything else is on the table from what people say. And that would include Ariz. So I think everything is out there. I don't think Ariz will get traded, but I wouldn't put it past them. I do think that one of the pitchers will get traded, whether it's Luzardo or Cabrera. Maybe more likely Cabrera. I mean, Luzardo, 3 years to go. I mean, he's got big value, and that would be a little bit of a gamble to do that. They obviously have a lot of pitching capital, which allowed them to trade Pablo Lopez. Last winter, it's still a controversial trade, but obviously Lopez was great. Ariz was great. But Lopez isn't going anywhere. Ariz, you got a new regime in there now. They may not think the value is quite as high on Ariz as the previous regime, and I'm not going to put it past them to trade him, but I think more likely they would trade Luzardo or Cabrera. Are they rebuilding? That's a question for them. I don't know the answer. They're talking about everybody. I can tell you that.
John, I know because you're somewhere in that area, and I spent a lot of time down there. I'm very frustrated as they're trying to reset again and become the Rays. And you're obvious with the Peter Bendix hire. That's fine, but I need 30 minutes for a therapy session on that. And I know you got to jump. Go break some news for us. John, thank you so much. And just for everyone else to see again, Jon Heyman, obviously you can follow him on Twitter, but check out all his articles, including his latest notes column in the New York Post. And his show actually this week, the show with John and Joel Sherman, has David Stearns on there, which is great. I have some weekend material to listen to. So, John, do a great job there. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
All right. Great to see you guys. See Eric, Adam, Scott. Great talking as always.
Cheers. Thanks, John. Jon Heyman with us on FT Live. Good stuff.